and welcome to Into You, the podcast where I take a deep dive into getting to know the best you. My name is Adam Straughan, and today I have the pleasure of chatting to a very talented and very handsome musician. He is the guitarist and backing vocalist of the heavy genre fluid band Lord of the Lost from Germany, which we'll get into that a little bit later on. But it is my absolute pleasure to welcome to the podcast, Mr. Pi Stoffers. How are you doing, buddy?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing very good.
Good.
Thank you.
How's your week been?
Honestly, very stressful. This Friday, even though when we chatted earlier, I told you it is very full. To me, it's the most relaxing day this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And it's really full.
And it's really full, yeah. But the stuff that is going on the other days is just very hectic, and it's a lot of studio work, or a lot of studio work happened. Yeah, and I was kind of tied to that.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Next to normal life.
Yeah. So you got it all going on, eh? All right, so you were recently in the UK, Pi, obviously, as part of the London and Leeds HRH Goth 2021 festival. So how was that?
Oh, dude. To start, we haven't played a real live show in I used an app counter whatever thing for that in 575 days.
What?
Yeah. And I still can't really describe it, but I didn't believe that we would play these shows until I actually put our makeup on. For the listeners who don't know, we're a band that is kind of heavy on makeup on stage, not like Kiss makeup, but Google it, you can see it for yourself. But when I realized that we were going to play, when I put on makeup and I actually put my in-ears in, and changeover started, because those were two festivals, as you said, and festivals are always very hectic. You don't get a sound check, even though you're co-headlining. You only get a line check. So that means you basically plug all the signals, or your crew plugs all the signals, and you check them for 10 minutes.
Right.
And that's it. And that's kind of a rough start after 1.5 years of not playing any live show. So yeah, I was very, very nervous. I'm not kidding, I had nightmares of these two shows.
Really?
Yeah. And I never had so vivid nightmares tied to a real experience that's going to happen. But I dreamt of us failing miserably. Failing to even play the same song.
Right.
The five of us, which is, I don't know why, but I was just nervous. And also I dreamt of not making it to the UK, but we did.
Yes.
And that's a whole different story because of logistics and everything, and UK not being in the European Union anymore. But as we were talking of the shows were not even close to perfect for us in performance-wise, but perfect for that moment that we had. We talked about it after the show in Leeds, after the second show. Actually, we talked about the first time how this made us feel and how we felt 1.5 years before these live shows, almost being anxious, not being able to return to this. So it was very, very emotional. And what we also did, we didn't really think about it. We played the majority of the set list were new songs of that album that you have behind there, Judas, which came out in July this year. And we've never played them live, but I think 3/4 of the set list were new songs. We didn't even think about it. I was like, yeah, of course we're going to play them. But then I thought, is the crowd going to know them? Can they, do they even, I don't know. You never know. But
yeah,
you basically lost all touch with how crowd reacts to you and how a performance is. I almost forgot that if I wouldn't have our TV of the Lost tour diary on YouTube. Yeah, but long story short, awesome shows. It was all worth it.
Yeah.
It was just going for one weekend, doing all the logistics, taking that financial risk and everything. Yeah, because financial risk, it's easier to go to Mexico than to go to the UK at the moment.
Seriously? Oh my God.
That's so fucked up. But yeah, we made it happen, and I'm glad we did, which gave us the reassurance that we can do it.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know what? Like, unfortunately, I couldn't be there, but I have actually looked at a lot of footage from people. I have friends who were there actually, and you know, they were really, really complimentary of you guys. Because I don't think they were familiar with your work until they listened when they were there, and they were like, "Oh my God, this band!" I was like, "I know," but yeah. So obviously, you guys killed, and I think it's just, you know, it's nerves because you want to do well, right? You know, you've come back after not playing for, like, as you said, like for 500 days, which is crazy. But obviously you came back and killed it. And I have to say, I noticed that you did a cover of Ordinary World, Duran Duran. And that is one of my all-time favorite songs. So when I got told that you did that, I was like, hold on. Got back home on YouTube, listened, you guys killed it. And that little guitar solo that you perform, Hello Pie, absolutely awesome. No, what a great cover though. It's brilliant. I love that. Yeah,
thanks. It was, I don't know. I think the story behind that is, first of all, we like to do a cover here and there of songs that there aren't really any sort of a genre. It's something very different. We did covers of Amy MacDonald.
Yeah.
Live. We did Bad Romance at one point, Backstreet Boys, Everybody. It's a great metal song. You can perform it as a great metal song. And a lot of other covers, and also Duran Duran, which was Chris, our singer, got back to that song when he was, I think, watching Grey's Anatomy.
Okay.
So. And it's playing in the background. He was like, that's a great song. I wonder, that's a great song to cover, actually. Yeah, and we talked about it, and we played it for the first time during our Sinister Summer stream, which turned out to be our release stream for Judas. And yeah, it just made sense to us to play that as a closing song during those festivals. And,
yeah, definitely. Being in the UK as well, you know, like representing Duran Duran, I love it. Although I do
That's
need.
What we were checking. That's what we were checking. Are Duran Duran from the UK? Yes, they are. Okay, we are definitely going to play that.
It all fits. It's fine. Although I do need to hear you guys covering Lady Gaga. That would be like my absolute dream. So I'm here for that. I see that you guys are coming back as well to the UK. So you're going back to London in December. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct. That is kind of an extra date and that goes back to the nightmares not only I had but also Chris. Our last show was in London in February 2020,
right,
14th of February, and we had to cut the set short because Chris was severely ill. We all were on that tour at some point, kind of I don't know, but maybe an early stage of Corona, I don't know, because we all had lung issues, we all had fever. One of the guys even had pneumonia. So, yeah. And Chris wasn't really able to stand on stage after 3 songs. So we cut that short. And little did we know that this would be our last show. So for him as well, this was very traumatic.
Yeah.
Step on stage again in London for the first time after the last show had failed so miserably. That date in December is basically our show to make up for that. That's why we did a headline show there.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to it because now we know how it works to get into the UK. It's less stressful now.
I don't know how difficult that is, but so the annoying thing is, because when I was obviously researching when you guys are going back to the UK, I looked and I was like, oh my God, they're coming to London. I think it's the 4th of December. And I'm in London on the 4th of December.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Are you coming?
I would love to, Pi, but tickets are sold out. So I was devastated when I saw that. But it's one of them things.
We can make something happen. I guess so.
We'll talk afterwards. But I would love to. The fact that I'm there as well, it makes sense, right? But
sure.
Yeah, definitely. We'll talk after Pi.
Yeah.
But so my week. So on Monday, I went to the start of Bring Me the Horizons UK tour. So I went to see them live. Yeah. So that was my first gig actually since everything. So it felt really weird going back and being part of, like that audience and then just seeing live music again. It was absolutely incredible. Bring Me the Horizon's been one of my favorite bands for years. I remember 2013 when Sempiternal had come out, which we might chat about a bit later on. But I saw them at Download Festival, and that was the festival when Linkin Park were there, and they were doing the whole Hybrid Theory album live, and that blew me away. And just before Linkin Park, obviously Bring Me came out, and we're doing tracks from Sempiternal, and I was like, I liked the album, but when I heard them perform it live, I fell in love. And then from that point, I've just adored them. So obviously when they were doing this tour, I had to go and see them, and wow.
I've seen footage of these shows, and I can imagine how weird it must have felt being in that. I mean, it's not an audience of like 1,000 people. It's an audience of, I don't know what, 7,000 people or so or more. I don't know. So it's a huge audience. And I've seen footage of the whole production, and I was like, yo, I mean, Bring Me the Horizon is a band to me that does everything right always. Except for the fact at a festival where they put signs up of themselves and said like, yeah, these guys can pass through everywhere. No security will stop them. Don't do that. And I was like, oh, that's a bit arrogant, but okay. I was blown away. That production, those video walls, I mean, and fun fact, I don't know if you know that band Bleed From Within. It's a very small, okay. It's it's a Scottish band. And the guitarist of them did the visuals.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So I love it when there's even connection between bands. They do other stuff for each other, and I'm jealous of you going to these shows because obviously Bring the Horizon is one of my favorite bands as well. And I looked at crappy live footage on YouTube and. It's still my last Bring Me show was, I think, 2019. It was before Ammo came out, and they which didn't make sense to me that they toured before the album came out and just played 3 songs or so off the album. Didn't make sense to me, but sometimes it doesn't work out like that. But still, that production, I didn't get it at first because they had like a cage thing going on that came up and down. And I looked at it, and it just started at the 5th song or so. So the first 2 songs were like, what is that cage doing? It was a weird show for some reason. But that production that they have now.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. So like I didn't know about the cage at all. So first of all, they came out and they opened with Teardrops, obviously from this album, and which is one of my favorite tracks. So as soon as I heard that start, just Ollie said Teardrops, the crowd went nuts. But then it was like maybe like the 3rd song, we saw the cage kind of coming down. And we were like, what? And I was like, what the heck's going on? Like, they're just going to perform behind this cage. And then it's when, like, how creative they were with it. The projections on there, and then even Parasite Eve, which by the way is one of my favorite tracks by them, when they started playing that, and then it looked like the cage was kind of like being torn open, and they had 2 dancers on stage that were dressed in, like suits that looked like they had like flamethrowers. It was just a trip, but it was incredible.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. They always do it right, like to the full extent as well. And that is something, I mean, they are somewhat of a metalcore band, right?
Yeah.
And to now see them doing these productions and also the weird also genre fluid mix they have.
Mm-hmm.
And they tie it beautifully to aesthetics and obviously video production, but also they incorporate dances on stage. And Justin Bieber does that, but also Bring Me the Horizon. And that is something that I think is very, very positive for heavy music, that it always goes, that it kind of goes back to a crossover stage that we had in like the 90s or so.
Yeah.
Or early 2000s. And this is something that is, I think that is, it would be very beneficial for the whole metal community to see that this is happening and to see that this is actually a good thing, because it means evolution.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
I couldn't
obviously
agree.
Bring Me the Horizon and also Architects to some extent are the forefathers of that. Like in 2 years from now, every metalcore band again will try to sound like Architects and Bring Me the Horizon. It always goes in that circle, to me at least. It's my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I wanted to say is that the metal community, even though it says it's very open to everything, there are always those fundamentalists who say, no, that's not true metal. Bring Me the Horizon are a band that has only little teen girls in that crowd. Maybe that's the case, but I know that you and I are also among those teen girls.
We absolutely are.
I'm perfectly fine with it, because the experience, the whole experience is so great, and you have to give them credit for that, and also for the marvelous production, the songwriting, full package, if you will.
It absolutely is. They're totally my jam, 100%. And yeah, you know, a lot of what you said there rings really true. And again, there's a lot of, when we talk about your band, Lord of the Lost, we will dive into that heavily, because the genre fluid thing, I think, is so interesting. As you say, there is a lot of metal communities where it's like, you know, you don't appreciate metal music unless you listen to death metal, unless you listen to black metal, unless you listen to the heaviest genres. And it's like, okay, well, if we break that down, like there's no kind of checklist, you know, there's no kind of, you must listen to these bands in order to say that you're into metal. Like, fuck that. Like, I don't agree with that. You just enjoy what you enjoy. And if it blends different genres of music, even better, it allows you to appreciate more genres under the umbrella of one band. And what's bad about that? I think that's incredible.
Yeah. And that also brings metal or heavy music as a big term more in the forefront of music in general. Because over the last years, everybody kind of said, yeah, rock is dead, metal is dead, there aren't rock stars anymore. And to some extent, there aren't those big rock stars like Aerosmith in the 80s anymore. But that also ties into the fact how the music industry works now. But apart from that, I think metal and rock is pretty much alive, and being able to cross over to other genres and everything, it just mixes up the crowd more. It's not like those denim jacket patch and it's okay that they are there, and I love that they are there. I'm not shitting on them, but it's not only them, and it does not have to be. And that is actually something that I realized in the UK, especially, that even at Gothic festivals, like the HRA Goth thing where we played recently, the crowd, obviously it's very goth heavy, like harness, black, makeup, everything. But also there were the regular dudes just checking out music. There were, I don't know, it was just makes normal teens there. Then again, what is a normal teen these days? But I guess you get the idea. It's very very mixed up, and everything's a very very welcoming climate. And I love that. And I think when we mix up music genres, that is what is going to happen more. I hope so, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, predominantly most of the bands that I'm into, some of my favorite bands mix like metal bands anyway, I guess, or rock bands mix genres really well. So like I like a lot of like symphonic sounding, metal, like bands like Epica, like Nightwish. And I've got other bands as well that kind of, so one of my favorite bands of all time is a band called Catatonia, obviously from Sweden. And so obviously you listen to them, who started off really doom metal, like one of the godfathers of that genre. And then you listen to them now and it's just really kind of more, I guess, depressive rock. And the evolution of their sound, I mean, now they've got a lot more of a synth sound, and like Jonas's vocal for me is one of the best. And like his voice has changed so much over time. And again, it's just that evolution of the sound for me is so fascinating when they start to bring in other elements. Like I said, like a synth sound, like, choirs, which obviously you use incredibly well, but I love that. I love to hear that. And I think it's such an evolution of sound that needs to happen, because for all that, you do get some bands who kind of have their genre, they stick to their sound, and that's fine if that works for them. They've got a fan base for that. That's their deal. But for me, I think when bands, when they evolve and when they start to mix different things into that and it works and still is, their sound and their identity and their evolution, I'm all for it.
Yeah, same. I mean, and also as a musician, as you said, there are also bands that like to stick to one genre and like to do one thing, and that is fine. And they want to stay true to their sound. But also being true to your sound can be always changing your sound. It could be also your thing. And to us, it's very much a thing. And it's very, very satisfying to be able to try to mix up things, genres, instrumentation, everything, and then make it work.
Yeah.
And if you come to that point where you realize that that actually works, at least to us, and that's what matters most. Yeah. That is very, very satisfying. So, I guess that's also why we try to change it up every now and then, because for once it doesn't make sense to us to do the same thing over and over again. It gets boring very, very quickly. And also we're very curious what things we can mix up on the next album and then make it work.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's part of the whole process, isn't it? Those musicians, when you get to creatively just explore that territory and you think, right, okay, let's try this, or let's try a little bit of that and see if that can fit in there. And obviously, the end product is, the process of doing that. Obviously, I mean, it always takes you back to the band Dimmu Borgir. So I remember, like, you listen to their more recent work, which is very symphonic, compared to like their first kind of few albums, completely different genres. And I remember like first hearing like Gateways and just being blown away. I was like, oh my God, this is Dimmu Borgir now. But again, phenomenal. So I love when bands do that and kind of just almost kick ass, they kind of say, right, we've tried another genre, but they're still amazing in it. And they still kind of put their stamp on doing things like that. It's incredible.
Sure. I mean, isn't Dimmu Borgir accused of like ruining black metal to some extent, like selling out black metal?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. And I listened to a podcast recently where it's called the Downbeat Podcast, and the drummer of Wolves in the Throne Room, which is also a very atmospheric black metal band, said that he loved the evolution of Dimmu Borgir, and I was so happy hearing that coming from also a black metal band, saying that the evolution of Dimmu Borgir, and thus being evolution in music or in any genre being awesome. It kind of restored faith in the music world. We're like, okay, not everyone is like so traditional and has to stick to some sort of genre and categorically exclude everything else.
Yeah, you know what? I absolutely agree, Vi. But I want to ask about you. So let me tell you how I found out about you first. This is quite interesting. So
yeah, how?
How did I find you? So I actually found you before the band. And the way I did that was, okay, so I'm going to say the name of a piece of music, which you'll probably know, which is Helvegen. So I'm a big fan of the artist Aurora from Norway, a huge fan.
Yeah.
And I saw that she performed with Vardruna, and she performed the song Helvegen, like live.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, like let's have a listen to see if anyone's done a metal cover of this song. And then I saw Scar Productions Vikings pop up featuring Stoffers, and I was like, okay. So then I listened and then like watched, and I thought, holy shit, who is this guy? And then that's kind of started me on my journey of when I like found out, you're in Lord of the Lost. I was like, okay, let me check them out. And I was like, right, this is instantly my jam. That is how I found you. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is, because that was such a random thing. I've never done a guest spot on anything in Scar, who we toured with Equilibrium at the start of 2020. He has this YouTube channel where he does metal covers and everything and gear reviews. And he's from Norway.
Mm-hmm.
So and Wadruna are as well, aren't they?
Yeah,
Right.
Norwegian bands.
So it was his first time actually singing in Norwegian as well. So he made that cover, and he sent me his message and was like, "Do you want to guest spot as a solo on that? I'm sure you can make it happen." I was like, I don't know the song, but sure.
Let's give it a go.
And send me the file, send me your version, and I'll figure something out. Yeah, happy for you to have checked it out, and even more happy that you got to our band as well and that you enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I just remember watching, thinking like, wow, this is such an interesting take on the song. And then obviously, checked you out, checked the band out. Here we are, right? Yeah, so loved it, man. But let me go back in time. So let's go back to Baby Pie. Sure. So let me ask you, Pie. So obviously, you play guitar. We can see that. Where did it all begin for you? So in terms of like, how old were you when you kind of picked up your first guitar and you decided this is what I want to do?
Those are two different events. It was not like I picked up a guitar and I immediately knew that's what I want to do in life. Wasn't easy like that for me. But I started at the very beginning. I joined a youth group who did some charity work in their community in my hometown. It's a small town called Glücksburg. At the Danish border. Yeah, we did some charity work for like the community and sang in the church and everything without me being religious or anything, but it was just like a group of people in puberty singing together in a choir, writing out plays and everything. So doing theater.
Nice.
In a very amateur way, but doing theater.
Yeah.
And we also had a band, and I wasn't in that band. It was just kind of cool to me, like seeing people doing music, being able to do that and tie that to a choir that sings to that music. I love that, and I joined that group and played in theater there, and this group kind of drew me to music. Like doing it every Friday, like meeting up, rehearsing, here and there, like a show. And I think I was 12 or 13 back then. At some point, I don't know why, but I guess I was friends with the band leader. Mm-hmm. I just, for some reason, wanted to try out how to play guitar. Next to that, parallel to that, another thing happened because I was very much into kind of heavy music because of my sister. One of my sisters, she was listening to a lot of new metal, a lot of pop punk. So Sum 41, Blink-182, Limp Bizkit, and so on. Linkin Park, obviously.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff. And I was just drawn to guitar music. I loved it. I think that was what initially drew me to the guitar. And then I had a very romantic moment. It's a very romanticized moment. I mean, I looked at a YouTube video. That's how you could put it normally. I looked at a YouTube video. That YouTube video happened to be the music video for November Rain from Guns N' Roses. And I just loved / standing in the desert playing a solo. So with that happening, I took guitar lessons from the band leader from that youth group, and I borrowed a guitar from a friend at school because he wasn't playing it. It was a shitty nylon string acoustic guitar, and I turned on YouTube and tried to learn songs on my own before I had the first lesson with my band leader friend.
Nice.
And yeah, started from there. And he taught me a few things. The first song I learned entirely was "Knocking on Heaven's Door," and yeah, after he quit the youth group, and I also changed lessons then from him to the next band leader, and also changing from acoustic guitar to electric guitar, because when I was 16, I got my first electric guitar for my birthday. And yeah, I think I took lessons for 2 years or so. And eventually I accidentally became the band leader of that youth group. So
all right.
I got introduced to actually leading a band, a very amateur band, but still setting up rehearsals, deciding on what we're going to play, figuring out how to play it, and to arrange it basically for the band. And did that, and I liked it. But still, I haven't thought about the fact that it actually would become reality, that I could do that as a job. It was a hobby. It felt good, but it was very out of this world for me that could actually happen. I never really thought about that. I also played in a pop punk band called Blackout in my hometown. We did one EP, had a few shows, but that was it. And I never took the direction really to pursue music as I want to do that as a job. What I did was I started recording school in Hamburg. In 2013 I moved to Hamburg to study audio engineering, because I was interested in how to learn how to record my guitar. It's such a stupid start. I mean, it's such a stupid reason to go for, well, I shouldn't say stupid, it's very naive. But also I was very young. I mean, in 2013 I was 20. Not really. So that is very young. You haven't figured out anything with 20. At least I think that.
Yeah.
So I did that, and from there everything kind of happened. I went to university for audio engineering. I tried to somehow get my foot in the door with the music scene in Hamburg. Didn't really work. I had a friend who I did covers with and everything. We wanted to play live, but unfortunately the drive of us was different. That kind of disappointed me, because I really wanted to make it happen, but for him it was more like easy. And yeah, whatever. It was whatever for him. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It was just his take on it, and my take was different. I wanted to do it like I want to play shows.
Yeah.
Didn't happen, and that almost made me go, okay, then I guess I'll just play music in my bedroom as a bedroom guitar player, and that's it, and pursue audio engineering. But obviously, you meet some people in Hamburg, and one of my lecturers actually was Chris, the singer of my band.
Oh wow.
He was my lecturer, and that's how I met him, and that's also how some of the other guys in the band and crew met him.
Right.
So yeah, at one point in 2015 or so, he asked me, or Bengt, our FOH guy, asked me if I want to go on tour as a guitar tech with them, and I said, yeah, sure. It was not paid. It was a few weeks of touring on and off, and it was the best.
Yeah.
It really was the best. And I already thought, like, I can't ask for more. It's awesome. I loved it. Even though I haven't been paid, I just like, I like them. I like being on the road. I like the work. But at some point, our ex guitar player quit the band. So what now? They said, or they thought, and they were like, "Do you want to try out on a tour and see how it works?" Because obviously we know each other and we're friends and everything, but on stage and entering a band, it's kind of a different dynamic as well. So let's try that. And I tried in at the end of 2016, and yeah, now fast forward from there, we're here now, and that the rest is kind of history. But obviously, it took some time for me as well to get accustomed to being in a band and how everything works. It's always hard to be the new guy at first, especially since the band already has been around for several years. And apart from that, I was very young. So everyone was like, "Oh, it's a band, baby." People still are like that. And I'm okay with that. But at the same time, I think, are you really calling a 20-year-old male a baby? I mean, obviously the other guys are older, but it's weird to me. And but hey, yeah, I had to get used to everything. And when you get into an already working team, which has all the processes down and is amidst an album production, it takes some time to get fully into the band. Now that's a different case. Now, since our last lineup change with Nick, our drummer, which happened in 2017, we are as complete as we can be. And feel like that, not only on a business level, but also on a personal level, because we're all very, very good friends. We consider ourselves family. Now we have it down, and now it's a team of 5 equals, and also a company of 5 equals. We formed as a company in 2020. So, yeah, that is, long story short, that is how I got the guitar in my hands. Yeah, but it all worked out, I guess. I never thought I'd do that, but sometimes things just work out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally fine with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you had those moments as well where you thought like, I never wanted that, but I wouldn't say no ever.
You know what? It's one of them things where it's a really organic process that for you. So, you started off where you were in the kind of performance sphere, so to speak, like doing like little amateur dramatics and things like that. And it just happened to naturally progress. And it's nice to hear that. It's one of those things where, Chris was just a lecturer, and then suddenly he's like, "Hey, do you want to just come and just do this thing?" You're like, yeah, like those opportunities, when do they ever come along? And it's nice that you grasp at that, because all that experience has brought you to where you are now, right? So, you could have easily just gone, no, actually it's fine. Like, I don't think I'm good enough or whatever. And then you might not have ever even been here. So I'm always such a big believer of when opportunities like that come along, just go for it, because what's the worst that could happen? You'd be back to where you are right now. So, and again, that's led to you being a part of the incredible band, and you've got, as you said, you're like a family now, and you're all close friends. And I just love to hear the evolution of that story, to go from something that you were like, okay, this is just something that I'm going to do as a child, to now being, one of the core members of a band. I mean, that's incredible, man.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I have to thank one of my best friends for forcing me to go to that youth group. They said like, man, you have to meet them. I mean, you're new in this hometown where I moved in 2006 in Glücksburg, and you have to meet them. This is what I do every Friday. And me having been a very, very shy and insecure person, being exposed to 80 other young people who are like at the zenith of their puberty, being loud and everything and annoying. There was some cold water, but it was great. And yeah, I guess I have to thank him for that.
Yeah, definitely. I come from a performing background as well. So like very much in theater, drama, like kind of acting work. That's my background. So I get it when you say about being there, like in a big group, and it can be a headache sometimes with everyone running around with all that energy. I completely get it. I've been there, man. But it's great. You know what I mean? It's its own little kind of microclimate, as it were. Like the performing kind of world, so to speak, when it's so different from like more of like an academic world when you can come in. It's just a different way of expressing. Do you know what I mean? Like a different way of harnessing skills and just learning how to develop in certain ways as well, I guess. So I completely get it. I've had those headaches. I'm 100% with you.
Yeah, it's a very different field, and also that is probably why it's such an abstract field to some people, because like people can't. Sometimes I think people can't really wrap their head around how, I'm going to say show business, because it also includes obviously theater and acting and everything. How that works and how it is actually, a real job.
Yeah.
Because it's so abstract to a lot of people, and I get that, and probably that is why during the pandemic it got so neglected as well, because there isn't really a lobby or anything for it. There's nothing that says, like, no institution that says like, yo, we're here and we're equal to any other I don't know, economy part, like cars, like transportation or whatever. Which is kind of hard. We all know why. Different field for a lot of people, and they can't really grasp how that works. And you notice that when, I don't know, your grandma or anything ask, so what do you do for a living? And I play in a band. Yeah, but what do you work?
Yeah.
Yeah, grandma.
I get that. It's hard sometimes for people to understand. I think that's a generational thing as well. Some people come from a generation where that's never even been a possibility. So to entertain the idea of that being a full-time job blows some people's minds sometimes. But we're here now. It's a different generation. And as I say, you're part of the band, Lord of the Lost. So let me ask you about them. Now, the band in the past, and I guess even today, have been, they've been labeled as goth. They've been labeled as, heavy metal. They've been, what you guys describe yourselves as is genre fluid, which I find really, really fascinating. So it kind of dips in a little bit of what we were saying earlier about, exploring different genres within music. But just talk to me about that concept, Pi, like when you came together and kind of discussed that as a band.
It came up when we were writing and producing Judas, because we were struggling for the most part for the last years how to define ourselves, because we were always getting asked, so what are you? And we weren't able to say that really. We always said like, dark, heavy music, metal. Or the best thing is on airports, when like the airport personnel asks, so, are you in a band? Yeah. What do you do? Yeah, it's some sort of metal. That was our answer for the most part, and still is, because it makes things easier on airports because you have no time. But when we were writing and producing Judas, it was like, this record is not metal at all in some points, and yet it is. But there are so many things that come into this record. There's a song like My Constellation, which is a ballad, and has nothing to do with instrumentation-wise heavy music. I mean, heavy music can be also emotionally heavy to me. Then there are songs like For They Know Not What They Do, who have like a double bass, almost blast beat part in the C, in the C section, in the middle eight. So what are we? And we kind of got it from being gender fluid, which is something to us. We were like, obviously, we don't really define ourselves as one thing, and we don't have to. I mean, why does that matter? Why do you have to be one thing?
Yeah.
It's not necessary. So we just kind of made a play of words out of it, and we're like, we're genre fluid. That is also a label for some, to some extent, because we say we're that thing, but we're keeping a lot of doors and also our minds open to everything. And I I understand why that would be hard for some people to understand, because we all know that people like to put others in boxes. And if they can't do that, they feel disoriented and are like, what do? I have to put you in a box because I have to label you to give you a name, to know what you are, because otherwise I would feel insecure. It's basically you feeling insecure about not being able to label someone, something. And that does not have to be with humans, with music. Yeah. So I get it, but I'd love to promote the idea of that not being that important anymore.
Yeah.
With music, with people, with everything.
I completely agree with that statement. I think, it's interesting where you say like people have to define it, and therefore the next step of that is so that they can understand it. And the point is, sometimes it's not about that. It's just, do you enjoy it? Yes or no? Yes. That's the end of the conversation. As long as you enjoy it, then kind of fuck the definition. Like, it's not always about that. And I think that really comes across, in, your music as well. As you say, like you blend so much into it. Like the first half, I guess, because this is an album of two parts. So I guess the first part is a lot more where you hear that kind of metal influence, right? So you do have a little bit of blast beats, some kind of heavier riffs, I guess. But then you still have those beautiful vocals of like a choir coming in. I mean, the way that, even like just Priest opens, that beautiful drum beat, and then you have that vocal that comes in, and then you kind of have the main kind of, metal bite, I guess, of the song. And it's really, really, just from that intro alone, you kind of think, right, okay, we are going on a journey here. I don't know which way we're going, but that's part of the excitement, because I don't know what I'm going to get next. And then when you go to the other side of the album, as you say, it's a lot more kind of, I'd say, reflective and kind of introspective. It's kind of almost like thinking about what you've heard and kind of more like considering. It's a lot, I guess, it's not as heavy. But that doesn't take away from anything. In fact, it's complementary of this other half of kind of the same album, really. And I think it's genius, if I'm honest. It's just really, it's really nice to take a concept like that. For me, the album, I guess, you guys have famously said, it's not a religious album. It's not an anti-religious album. It's more focused on the character of Judas, right? So, but in that, Judas himself, if you break that down, you're looking at things like decisions, you're looking at portrayal, you're looking at motive, you're looking at the effects of that and the effects of what that has on you as an individual, but also the effects of the relationship that you have with people. I think that really does come across in the music.
Thank you. That is a very, very extensive analyzation of what Judas is, and also is very, very correct. And that's the first time I heard someone. It's not like it has to be, but it's the first time I've heard someone getting that to the full extent, which makes me very happy. But that is what Judas is about. That is why I'm happy that we had so much time for this album, because we were able to really, really focus on what we want to express with that. And obviously some people get it. That's nice. And as you said, the second part of the album is not as heavy, but that does not take away from the excitement or the experience. I could call it more of a breather, if you will. It's more of a breather, because it's very, you get hit with so much on the album in total, but especially the second part, the salvation part, is a bit more of a breather, and the instrumentals on there are a bit more. Let's reflect on what we just heard. Let's reflect on what we just said, and let's come to closure at the end in Work of Salvation, which is kind of a roundup to the start of the album and kind of expresses equilibrium, if you will. That was what we intended to do, and I'm happy that you got that away from that. And
I'm pleased I read that right. But it's just, for me, it's there. And I think it's such an interesting concept, because you do get so many albums that focus on, the concept of, I don't know, let's say religion. But yet when you break that down, like what you guys have done, you've just chosen, a character, the biblical character of Judas, so to speak. But rather than just focus on, Judas, I guess, like the Lady Gaga song can do with parts, but which, by the way, is a banger. But yeah, you've stripped that down. You've looked at the concept of that character, and I think that really does come across really well in the album.
Thank you. I mean, and there are some people who were saying like, that's not new. To say something about Judas, and I agree. That is completely not new, because obviously it's already written in the Bible, which is a fucking old book. So no, it's not new. I agree. But I think that is a very shallow way of handling that album, because there is something more to be said about that, and at least we haven't found something that does that yet. Yeah. If we were just ignorant of stuff and haven't seen that yet, please show it to me. But that's our take on it. And
yes,
as you said, more than just portraying Judas as he is portrayed in the Bible, or as we would think of him.
Yeah,
I guess.
Well, it's key in what you've said there, Pi. It's your take on it. So therefore, yes, Judas, the character, has been around for thousands of years as part of the Bible. We get that. But your take on that, that's what makes it more unique. Like anybody can, and books like that are open for interpretation, right? So you can read something, you can read something, and I can read something, and we can read into it completely differently. That's where the uniqueness is. And that's like kind of the beauty of the conversation that happens after you've listened to an album, right? So say you and I could listen to, I don't know, a Bring Me the Horizon album. You will love certain parts of it. Might dislike certain parts of it. You will read into songs in certain ways. I'll do something completely different probably, but the beauty is in that conversation afterwards, where we come together and we're talking about it and talking about our interpretation of it. And that's the whole point of art. Doesn't matter which way, shape or form it comes in. It's that, for me, that's the most interesting part, the kind of how you sum it up in your mind at the end. And then those conversations you have with your friends, even probably your bandmates as well, like talking about, God, this is what I took from that. But that's the beauty, and that's the interesting part, right? Is when you have those conversations and you think, God, that's a really interesting take on that album.
Yeah, sure. For me, also, that is the best part, talking about what we just did, what we just heard, how that makes us feel, and what we got from it. I did that with my bandmates, as you said. I did that with other friends. I've read comment sections, which are a weird place. We all know that. But apart from positive and negative comments in comment sections, there are also interpretations. Yeah. And that's what I look for, because that opens up even more things to me that we haven't even thought of on that album, but makes sense as well. And I like that when ideas get extended or have a different take on it. And that's what I'm looking forward to when music is out, how people receive it. Obviously there are people who just want to enjoy the music and they like loud guitars and drums and everything, which is fine as well. Yeah. Or they hate it, which is fine as well. At least it made you feel something. But also, and that's the best part, there are people who really take it in. And I agree on the fact that it's a lot to take in that album. I mean, it's 24 songs. Yeah. And it's a big topic. But when the time comes that you can have a discussion about it and everything, that's exciting. And I still love to have like a real event, which is kind of like what we did for Thornstar, where we had a release party and also a pre-listening party and everything.
Oh, nice.
In the studio with a few people. It was like 80 people or 100 people the whole day. We had like different groups and everything. I still love to do that with Judas as well, because now people really have heard it and had it spin in for a few times and can say something about it. I'd love to hear that and have like a discussion panel about it, because it's exciting to me.
Yeah.
I hope we can make that happen at some point.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. It's interesting you say that. There's two of my favorite bands. So obviously, I've mentioned Catatonia as one, and Opeth is the other one. So, and they obviously, Mikhail Ackerfeld and Jonas Rensky, the two lead singers of each band. They are good friends. They're both Swedish, and they're both like good friends and have been for a long time. And they do that. So every time one of the bands has recorded a new album, they have a listening party where it's just, say, like Catatonia's got their new album, and then they'll invite like Opeth over and they'll listen, and then they'll listen to it again, and then they'll kind of give their feedback and vice versa. I just find that so fascinating. Like those listening parties, I think are great because, as you say, it's straight away initial feedback. You're kind of getting, what are you into? What do you like straight away before the album's even out? And I think that's fascinating for me. I love that stuff.
Yeah. And the initial feedback in general, just from the way people listen to it, and they sit there with their eyes closed or not, you see it in their gestures, in their faces, what it does to them, and I love that, which is very, very exciting part. We had that to a very small extent with Judas as well, because 4 fans of ours won a pre-listening date with us, but that was the biggest thing that we could do because of the pandemic. Invite 4 people to the studio, being tested and everything. And there were 3 of us and them, and they listened to the whole album.
Wow.
in like, what is it, 2 hours or 2.5 hours with breaks, and looking at them and seeing their reaction, their initial reaction, and they're like, that was very, very cool.
That's amazing. The fact that it's like fans as well, because that's a different interpretation altogether, where you might have musicians who will appreciate certain things like that they hear in the music, but then there's fans as well who are just there just to enjoy the whole concept. I think that's fascinating. I love that. If you run that competition again, I will be entering.
Maybe with the next album.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. But I want to ask you about that, obviously, Pi. So, like this album, for me, it's very much like a concept album. You've gone in there, you've written music, which you've all had like an idea about the concept of what you want to explore with the album. And there's so many bands that do that. And some of my favorite albums are concept albums. The band Epica does that all the time. Aerion does that all the time, where they take a concept and then they write their music and construct it where they're exploring something. That's what I want to ask. That's what I want to ask you about. So when you are kind of, together as a band, and you yourself as well, when it comes to writing lyrics or putting a song together about a concept, I mentioned Jonas Rensky again, obviously from Catatonia, because he did a really interesting interview where he talked about lyrics and how he kind of composes songs. And he said, like, there are certain lyrics that you read and it's all there on the page. It's about a certain experience, and that's the way it is, and that is it. And you get that a lot in, I guess, pop music, like love songs, for example. This is the experience that I had, and that's it. That's the way it'll always be. Whereas he said he's more drawn to lyrics where they're a little more like this ambiguity. They're a little bit more abstract. So therefore, when you read it, you can interpret it differently. He said he's always drawn to lyrics like that because of the different meanings, because different people can kind of get different things from that. And I always find that really fascinating. And when you read the lyrics to Catatonia songs, it's there. You can read different things into each song. And I guess that's similar with your music as well. So I just want to ask you about that in terms of, when it comes to writing music, when it comes to writing lyrics, what's your process behind that?
When it comes to writing lyrics, I mean, obviously, as you said, Judas is a concept album, and hence the name. And obviously, we had different topics that we wanted to cover, that we thought about during our research on that topic. Like, as you said, it's not only about the person itself, but it's also about our relationship with ourselves, with other people, interactions that we have with other people, betrayal. Every song, the music is written first for the most part. So you have like kind of a world that makes you feel something. So the music makes you feel something, and you can kind of see what you want to say in that song, because it just sounds like it, right?
It invokes it in you. Yeah,
true. That's the word. And what we did beforehand, when we just wrote stuff down, which weren't lyrics, but I don't know, paragraphs about stuff, or just even words, from words to paragraphs, can be anything.
Yeah.
That are saying something. So, for example, "Born with a Broken Heart" was just like this kind of half sentence that we had, which sounded cool to us, and it meant something to us, but we didn't know what to make of it. But then we extended that idea of being born with a broken heart, not in a romantic sense, but in a being left out sense, and being doomed to being considered the bad person, which can refer to Judas, obviously, but it can also refer to anyone else. That's where I basically started off going about it. Okay, born with a broken heart, what can that also mean? It's hard to explain. It's very hard to explain a creative process, but what can that also mean? And how do you make it work in a sense of portraying that feeling that you have with Born with a Broken Heart, being doomed to be the bad person, even though, for example, as I said in the song, heaven is a place where you belong.
Yeah.
But you're not getting there, honey. Because you are doomed to fail. You are born with a broken heart. I guess with Judas, we had a lot of things written down beforehand that we wanted to express, and what we thought could go into the topic of Judas, the whole concept, and also just made up things like interactions between two best friends, for example, which could be Jesus and Judas, but also not necessarily.
No.
But if you look at the song Euphoria, it's set up as an interaction between two people. Between Judas and Jesus could be. That's where we started to just have like names to the characters, but it's really about one person asking the other person to do something for him, which makes the other person feel very, very, very bad.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very egoistic thing to ask that of that person. So basically, you have to kill me, but they're best friends, right? Why would I don't want to kill you? And basically questioning in that song, is there a way out of this? You're saying that I have to do that, but hear me out. Hear me out. Maybe there is a way we can flee from all this. We can go to another world. We can, that world being Euphoria. This song is just basically about trying to avoid the necessary evil that one friend asks out of you. And which is a very, very complicated emotional world. And Benji, our guitar tech, and I we were sitting there and we're trying to imagine how that would feel. And that Euphoria, the lyrics to Euphoria are the outcome. That is our interpretation of how that would be. I don't know if that really answers your question of how we go about it, but it's really about getting into the topic and thinking about how would you feel in how oneself would feel in that situation, what oneself would do.
I think, like that nails it, to be fair, Pi. I mean, one of the things that you're really leaning on there by what you're saying is storytelling, right? So, you've got these two friends, that's a really, we know the parable, of like Jesus and Judas, and that there's a betrayal, you have to kill me, everybody knows that. But what's interesting is that you're kind of diving deeper into that, and you're like, right, okay, if that is the story, we know how to do storytelling, but let's have a look at the subtext. So these two friends, this is how they feel. And then you're exploring kind of the emotions that surround that and the kind of trials and tribulations that they have to go through in that moment. That's when the interesting stuff starts for me, because that's like straight away, that's imprinting on the audience, and the audience is almost imprinting back on you as if to say, I understand that, I can read that, I get that. Yes, I can relate to that. And that's the beauty of some of the best written songs. You know, like, as I said earlier, like when you can get a song that's written, it's written in a particular way, which tells a story, and that's kind of the end of it. And that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah, sure.
But when you look more like deeply into a song and you kind of, yes, you've got the surface level of that story, but then it goes deeper and then you become, you know, in that place where you can relate to it and you kind of think, yes, how would it feel to be in that situation? I think about my best friend. What would that be like if I was in that situation?
Yeah.
How would we handle that situation? How have they described how they felt in that situation? Would I feel like that? And again, it comes back to that kind of feedback loop afterwards, you know, that kind of, oh, this is what I got from that. That's really interesting. What did they get? And I think, yeah, the conversation after that is the most interesting part. And that's fascinating for me. It's the best way to write music.
And that's basically what we wrote down. Yeah, it's what it's our thoughts on that topic and how our feelings basically. So it's not autobiographical, but it's what we would feel if.
Yes.
And you put it way better than I did, because also you're better with English than I am, because I'm German. But
you're incredible.
Thank you. But that is what for us lyric writing is about, really getting into the situation, whatever that situation may be. I mean, on Viva Vendetta, we talk about not letting someone die because we want to have eternal revenge on you, and we want to let you bleed forever. But you won't die. I won't let you die. Which is a horrible thing, obviously. But we're trying to express our utmost, not experience. I don't have experience in that. Emotions with that. And then again, there are songs like Gospel of Judas, which we, to some extent, can only feel ourselves into, because that song, and to me, it's the most lyrically and thematically, it's the most important song to me on that album, because this song is about being left out of society, actually. So it's like a hymn for Judas, with the Gospel of Judas, which him being betrayed as the traitor. He is someone who you point your finger at and say, like, you're a traitor. Go into that corner and be there. And when we think about that, society does that to a lot of people just because of the way they believe in something or what they believe in. It was one thing, but also, and that was a big topic for me, and that's where we also go back to genre or gender fluid, is how people identify themselves as and who they love. And that is something I can't wrap my head around, why people would be discriminated. And Gospel of Judas is basically a song of empowerment for those people, to basically that is very simply put, write your own story. As we say in the song, you fill your canvas yourself, or you fill this canvas yourself, I think is the lyric. And then vice versa, the crowd is yelling Judas, Judas. But as we continue singing the lyrics, or as Chris continues singing the lyrics, you're not sure anymore if that Judas means something evil. It just says something different. And or that you're different. And I don't know how I put it originally when I described that song, but when you're different, that is something that you should embrace. And I mean, we as people, we only can gain from not setting limitations on ourselves. I think that, and not only limitations, but also labels and how things can be in boxes and not out of the box. That's only imprisoning yourselves. and others for that matter. And I wanted the Gospel of Judas to be a song that depicts that, basically, that is not a good thing, and that we should all be empowered to be whatever we want to be. And that is perfect.
Hi, that is so deep. That is so incredible. And just to quote you there, we can only gain by not putting limitations on ourselves. That, for me, is a statement for the album and for life. I think that's incredible. That should be, you should write that down and you should tattoo that on yourself. That's incredible. That's so strong. And I have to say, as a member of the LGBTQ community, it's really empowering to hear that, and it is really reassuring. And it's a narrative, that unfortunately a lot of people of that community, myself included, have been through. When you are kind of almost cast out as the Judas character because of that difference. And the reality is the beauty is in just you writing your own story, as you say. And I think that song hits so well for many different reasons for different people, and obviously hit me really well for that reason as well. But I think what's beauty in that is that, you've written that song, and that's incredible, but that kind of bleeds into the way that, you kind of are accepting of your fans. I mean, you've got your, Love of the Lost range as well, which is absolutely incredible. And, you kind of, you embrace that, you embrace that concept. It's not just about, we've written a song about it as well. You're kind of really being inclusive with your fan base and everything like that. And I think that's incredible. I think a lot more bands could do that, to be honest. But again, you put yourselves out there and you prove that, in the sense, I mean, you've got that range. You also did the photo shoot for, was it the German magazine Sonic Seducer, which was incredible.
Yes.
It was kind of just you guys having fun and just saying, so what? Like, what the fuck? Let's just go for it and do it. I
love that photo shoot.
So good, man. It was class. I loved it. But yeah, so anyone who wants to check those photos out, just Google it and have a look, man. You are in for a treat.
Thank you. I mean, as you said, more bands should do that or could do that. To me, it's just something of importance, for one part, because I don't want anyone to feel left out just because of the way they are.
Yeah.
Because everybody's different, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I love it. And also, people ask us why we are so inclusive of that, and that we're kind of forcing this rainbow propaganda down their throats, which is, first of all, horrible to say that. And I mean, it's not like that we have been different at any point, like, or not including, or at least trying to include everyone, except for people that actively try to fill everyone with hatred and, I don't know, like fascists or anyone. That's not the people I'd like to include in my society. But anyone else, I can't say anything else, because why wouldn't we?
Exactly.
I mean, to talk about myself here, I ask and that is something that I have never shared with almost anyone. At some point in life, I ask myself, am I maybe not completely heterosexual? I don't know. But I questioned that, and for a long time, actually. And at some point I was like, does it matter?
Exactly.
Does it really matter? I mean, and quite recently, when there was a Pride Month and Christopher Street Day here in Hamburg, I live in the LGBTQ quarter, if you will. It's called St. George, and there's rainbow flags everywhere all year round. And it's basically where the LGBTQ community of Hamburg lives for the most part.
Yeah.
So, for example, also my neighbors. And they invited me and my girlfriend to a brunch, a Pride brunch. And the topic was dress gay. Gay as in happy and colorful, and which is the meaning of the word. So I was like, fine, I can put on my stage clothes. I was like having like sparkly leggings and just a tank top and gold necklaces and everything, and a bit of makeup. And I talked with someone about the fact that I don't know, probably I could feel drawn to anyone who speaks to me on an emotional level, not necessarily in a romantic sense or in a physical sense, because that's where that's where my heterosexuality is. But in an emotional sense, that's where gender goes out of the equation for me. That's what I realized for me.
Yeah.
So, and realizing that, I just got a glimpse of what people who realize, I don't know, for themselves that are not heterosexual, that they are whatever that there is somewhere in the spectrum. When they realize that and they want to live it out, but can't, just because some people say it's not right. I was like, what the?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
That's not right. And that's where I started being like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
That's not okay. And there was, I don't know when there was. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my take on that.
Well, I mean, first of all, Pi, like, thanks for sharing that. Obviously it's something that you haven't talked a lot about with people. So I appreciate you sharing that with me today. But another thing, it's really interesting what you said there is that a lot of people ask us, why are we so inclusive? And I think the best answer to that is because you're still asking me that question. The sense is, why do you need to ask that? It should be more of a quick case of people don't need to ask that. It's just, okay, yeah, they're doing this thing. That's the end of the story. Like, the fact that you have to raise it and ask it as a question means there's still so much of a push for us to do it.
Exactly.
And people unfortunately don't understand that. But we're getting better. You know what I mean? As time goes on and as the years go on, we've come so far. We've got so far still to go. But it's so encouraging, as I say, to see bands like yourself and obviously members like yourself who are not pushing it, are just showing it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the best way to look at it. So honestly, I appreciate it.
Yeah, true. Thank you. Visibility is key here.
Yes.
And there are some people who will say, yeah, but if it's not that important, why do we have to talk about it then? Why do you bring it up all the time? I mean, I get your point to some extent, because if you bring it up, no one talks about it, and it's just there. But also, we still have the majority of the world being not open to it. So it's not like we can just be silent about it.
Yeah.
Because then we wouldn't raise attention to those people who are against it.
Exactly.
So I get your point, but you're also missing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, Pi, that's incredible. And I think, the conversation that we've had there is so important. And it's a conversation which I think a lot more people need to have. But we'll get there. We will keep going there. But conversations like this make it really reassuring. Agree. And obviously, I hope that everyone that listens to this will take from that. All right, Pi. So this is the section that I call Geek Out with the Guest. So I asked you to give me 5 of your favorite, not necessarily your top 5 favorite, but just 5 of your favorite albums of all time. I have to say, there are some in here that I absolutely gel with. They are my jam. So, okay, let me read out the list first, and then we'll just have a talk about some of them, okay? We have Daybreaker from Architects. We have Sempiternal from Bring Me the Horizon, one of my all-time favorites. We have Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. We have Revolutions Live at Wembley, Biffy Clyro, which is a really interesting one. I need to ask you about that. And then this for me is nostalgia. This is my youth. This is me as a teenager. This is all killer, no filler, Sum 41. All right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where do I start? Because there is some bangers in here. Let me give you a little few anecdotes of some of them from me. Okay,
please.
So I went to see Architects 2018 in London. So this was before Daybreaker was released. And it was after Daybreaker. That's right. But Yeah, and they killed. That was the first time I ever saw them, and they were absolutely incredible. It was the Holy Hell album that they were touring, and they were phenomenal. Obviously, I've told you about Sempiternal, one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
Antivist, Shadow Moses are just songs that I adore. From Daybreaker, I think These Colors Don't Run is my favorite song. Yeah. And then Guns N' Roses is an interesting one. So they remind me of my dad. My dad is a huge Guns N' Roses fan. So whenever I hear anything by them, that's what I think of straight away, my dad. Biffy Clyro. So I watched another interview that you did on YouTube, and the guy you were speaking to didn't really know who Biffy Clyro were.
The A&P Reacts.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Biffy Clyro, my jam. So like that golden rule, Bubbles, like for me, like when I hear that golden rule, just it invokes something in me. I think it's such a banger. That last minute of that golden rule when it's just the guitar and the violin, love that. And then All Killer No Filler. I mean, Fat Lip, In Too Deep, like those are just me and my best friend. Whenever they come out, there's like a rock and metal night here in Newcastle that we go to sometimes on a Saturday night, and whenever those jams come on, that is us. We know every lyric. It's just but it's nostalgia. It takes us back to our youth, because that album came out when we were like really young and kind of we were just starting to get to know each other, and we're like, loving that album. So yeah, talk me through some of these albums. So tell me why you love them so much.
All right. We go from the bottom to the top, as you said, or from the last one. All Killer No Filler. As I already mentioned, my sister was listening to a lot of pop punk, and thus Sum 41. And I don't know, this album, All Killer No Filler, just evokes emotions in me again that I had when I was 14.
Yeah.
And was going on like a vacation to learn a bit more French. So it was like, not really a vacation, was like a language journey to France with a lot of other young people. We were a German group. We met up with a French group in France, and it was like an exchange, if you will. And one of the guys in the French group, he was listening to a lot of Sum 41. And I remember going to France in that coach, listening to All Killer No Filler the whole drive there. So the whole, I don't know, 28 hours or so, when I didn't sleep. And it is just that feeling of being away from home for a longer time, for the first time, on my own with a group of people that I don't know. And it's the first time for me as someone hitting puberty to be independent in some way, to figure out how to do this, and to meet other people that I've never seen before, that don't even speak my language, that I don't really understand, and they don't understand me. It was a big learning experience, and I loved that journey because it was the first time for me that I found other people that liked the same music as me, and it was just very welcoming. So this album holds a special place in my heart because it just evokes positive memories.
Yeah.
And apart from that, the songs are just, I don't know, it's just a very good album.
Right.
Apart from that. And obviously, Fat Lip, and it's just a great song.
Banger. Absolute banger.
Yeah. And I mean, every album of those is tied to or holds an emotional, it holds an emotional worth. So what is the next? Revolutions at Wembley, right?
Yes.
Biffy Clyro. So I have heard Biffy Clyro when I was 16 or so for the first time, but I haven't really heard them. It was a cover of Many of Horror.
Right.
On some sort of casting show.
Yes.
And I didn't care for the casting show. It was just that song. It was a YouTube video of the winner, obviously. It was just like in the recommendations area, and I clicked on it, and it was a great song. And for a few weeks, I believed that is his song. But when I found out that it's not his song, it's the band called Biffy Clyro, I was like, okay, then I'll check them out more. And that was already the point where Revolution's Live at Wembley was already out. And the atmosphere that this album has, it's a live album, and it's still the best live album I've ever heard. That just hit me very, very hard in a good way, emotionally. And yeah, Many of Aura is just one of those songs that will always give me comfort. And especially on that album, every song is great, but the live version of that song, where, I mean, the Wembley, it's not the stadium, it's the SSE Hydro Wembley thing, where I think 12,000 people can fit in there. And they're all singing that song, and it's just a great moment on that album.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we all know that music is sometimes the best partner of it in a dialogue that you can have, because it doesn't talk back, but it still understands everything you say. And this album has, every song can be for a certain type of emotion or moment. When I need someone to talk to, quote unquote talk to, I will find that answer there to some point. And
I like
that's why I love that album. And I mean, the songwriting, to go back to musicianship, the songwriting of Biffy Clyro has always been great.
Yeah.
And the guitar playing is sometimes very weird, because Simon Neil played the violin when he was young. So he always used all of his 4 fretting fingers, which you don't necessarily do in rock music.
Yeah.
But he always does it with almost every chord, every line he plays. It's some sort of intricate thing, which makes it very interesting, even though it kind of sounds just like a normal quote unquote rock song.
Yeah.
Pay attention to it. Awesome. Going from that, I mean, Appetite for Destruction. It's that album of Guns N' Roses where I'm like, that's them. That's their I don't give a fuck about anyone else attitude. And it's us against the world attitude. And to put it briefly, that is an attitude, that us against the world attitude is something that I always like to have with my band. That it's us against the world, and we can do everything if we just want to. And I mean, Guns N' Roses were a bit more reckless in their days. we just a bit, consumption-wise, and also setting interview sets on fire and everything. That's something we will never do.
Really?
I guess. I don't know. To me, it's the album version of that glorified era of rock and roll. That's Appetite for Destruction for me.
Yeah. And
I love it. Sempiternal and Daybreaker.
Yeah.
Sempiternal, I mean, we already talked a lot about it. It's for me, this album is a milestone in heavy music. I think you can't argue with that. Anyone can argue with that, because from that album, it's like it's kind of the second Killswitch Engage invented metalcore. Bring Me the Horizon took a different turn on the whole metalcore genre with Sempiternal. Not just shouting and growling, but having that mix of singing and screaming in there. The songwriting is top notch. The production, to get nerdy here, the snare sound of that album, it's the best snare sound I have heard, next to, what is it, Hot Dog Flavored Water, Limp Bizkit, yeah, Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavored Water. Those 2 albums have, to me, and everyone can argue with that, those 2 albums have the best snare sound to me. I heard the leaked version of Sempiternal. Sorry, it leaked on YouTube, everywhere. I heard that in the shower the first time, sleepwalking.
Oh yes, tune.
And it's one of those moments where when you realize you have found what you haven't been looking for, but it's the perfect thing. Like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's it. That's it. You get me.
Yeah.
And yeah, we go on from there. It's just something that's very close to my heart and where I'll always be a complete fanboy about.
Couldn't agree more. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. It's still my favorite Bring Me album, if I'm honest. It's just, for me, it's one of those albums where every single song, I can listen to it start to finish and never press skip. Everything, it's just perfectly constructed.
Even the deluxe version.
Especially the deluxe version.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm saying even because sometimes the deluxe version just is something to bump up the sales again.
Yeah.
And there are some not really B-sides on it, but some songs that didn't make it to the normal version, but it's really the name is the game here. It's really a deluxe version.
It is. Yeah, you're right.
We want to sell more version. Yeah. So yeah, and Daybreaker. I didn't like Architects for a long time because they were too, I don't know, too mathcore for me. They were just loud, and I mean, it's up to me that I wasn't able to follow their music because it was just too intricate for me on Hollow Crown and everything. I didn't really get it back then. But Daybreaker, when I moved to Hamburg in 2013, I was new in Hamburg. I didn't really have any friends here. I just had the people that I met at university. And one of them showed me Daybreaker. And I remember a night where we sat at the Alster River here in Hamburg, drinking red wine, and we're listening to this album on our phone, like loud speaker on our phone, so very trashy.
That sounds like a good time to me.
It was a very good time, and I haven't stopped listening to that album since because it's like a screenshot of a time, if you will. And I will always remember moving to Hamburg and hearing this for the first time, and again finding some sort of comfort because I think I kind of felt like I'm also understood here in a new city where I don't know what to do, where I don't know anyone, but this album can give me comfort and anything will be good. That is very, very theatrical and to say that, but that for me is what it was and what it still is. So that's why that album is on that list. I love it.
I love that.
And also the line right before the breakdown in These Colors Don't Run, where he basically spits out, "You fucking pigs." And I was like, yeah, you get me. You get me.
I love that. I'm like that with like Antivist. You know, just that line right before the breakdown. It's, oh my God, I've shouted that so many times in my car. Probably people driving past are like, what the?
It's just very, very, very bland, these lines, but also while being that, they're very straight to the point.
Yeah, they need to be shouted.
Yeah.
I love that. What an eclectic mix as well. I mean, for all that, you know, there's a heavy look of, like, you know, I'm just looking at the list now, like we've got metal influence, we've got rock influence there as well. I guess some little bits of pop influence with Biffy Clyro as well, but predominantly it's like, it's rock, but a really nice mixture. And it really does kind of give an idea into the type of music that you listen to, that you appreciate and enjoy. Whereas I'm sure there is hundreds of other albums that could have made this list. But what a really good mixture. I think if you and I hung out when we were younger, say I lived in Hamburg when I was your age, I think we probably would have gotten on very well, because this speaks to me as well, this list. So I remember when you first sent it and I looked and I was like, oh my God, like seriously, this is literally some of these bangers, right? But I love that pie. What a great eclectic mix. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you didn't say your top 5, because it's hard to pick favorites.
Impossible.
Among an abundance of great albums out there.
Exactly.
So it's just one of your 5
from your favorites. Yeah.
So
it's the only way to do it.
Could have been pop albums in there as well, but I picked those.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, God, I mean, if I asked you to pick your top albums, rather than 5, it probably would have been 500. You know what I mean? It's like, where does it end? But yeah, like, I think they're great. Such a great mixture. And it'll be interesting. You know, if I asked you to pick another 5, they'd probably be completely different again. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of it.
I can't speak anymore. When you would have moved to Hamburg when you were younger, I think we're still getting along now when we aren't that young anymore. So
absolutely, Pi. Yeah, bestie.
I love it that it's more of a chat than
an interview.
It was never meant to be an interview, but than an interview.
This is the whole point of the podcast, Pi, to be honest. Like, that's one of the things I really want to highlight with the podcast, is that I don't want it to ever feel like, yes, I know I ask you things, but it's because I'm getting to know you. It's not because I'm interviewing you. And like, a lot of people say that when they come back to me, like, oh, so who are you interviewing this week? And I'm always like, who am I chatting to this week is probably the way I prefer to say.
Exactly. And also that you're talking about yourself in some parts is very important to me, because I don't like having everything being about me. And as you said, it's a chat, so and a dialogue. So why wouldn't you tell anything of your experiences? It's very important to me.
Exactly. You know, I just like to relate, you know, myself to things that I can see in you, you know, that I can see in your work. And I think that's the beauty of getting to know one another, right? Is that you share experiences like that. So yeah, honestly, that's why I love doing this. And again, thank you for doing it. I think this is really fascinating. And I mean, I want to, first of all, thank you for having the kind of courage to upload it, because it's something that a lot of people might have shied away from talking about. And you might be able to think what I'm on about. So
no, actually not.
What could that be? So on your Instagram, I think it was a couple of months ago now. So you uploaded a video, and it was you talking about you had an incident at the gym. So in this video, so you went onto one of those fitness machines where you get like all of your statistics printed off, and then you had it given to you, and everything was very much in the green. So, you know, kind of very much like everything's, I think, average as you put it, but everything's fine. Yeah. Then you had a member who I guess worked there, who tried to kind of almost say to you, look, these are good, but they could be a lot better, and almost kind of like downplayed like your statistics. I just wanted to know, like, can I talk to you about that? Is that okay to talk about?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay. I think so. For me, when I watched the video, and I mean, you talk about it beautifully, you know, in terms of why that situation was not okay. There's 2 things that stood out for me, and obviously, please let me know if I'm reading into this correctly. But I think the number one thing for me, and this is a gripe of mine when I see it, when I hear about it, is that it was her intent. So in doing that, you know, she's trying to basically monetize on bettering people. So her intent realistically goes from, you know, I can help you. And I guess that's underlined with the subtext of I can make money out of you. So therefore her priorities in that are questionable, right? Now don't get me wrong, I get that people have businesses to run, people are self-employed, people market themselves. I completely understand that. But there is a way that you do that. And the thing that really stood out for me is the way that, you know, she approached you, and when she was, you know, imparting on you, she was telling you that you could be better. She doesn't know you. She doesn't know the journey that you've been on with your fitness. She doesn't know where you've come from. She doesn't know how important that might have been in that moment for you to stand on that machine and to get those statistics. Those statistics could have been the best you've ever had in your life. And for somebody to come along and tell you that they're good, but could be a lot better, has no idea on the damage and the detriment that could do to somebody. So that's what I took from that. And I just wanted to hear kind of you talk a little bit about that. And obviously, if you don't mind.
Sure. I don't mind at all. Let's start at the very beginning. It was, so that person is working at the gym. So it's her full-time job either way there. I mean, I'm already a member. Yeah. So she isn't really able to sell me anything more, but still I went there obviously just out of curiosity, and it was for free. It was a gift from the gym, actually. Nice gift, thank you. And I just did it because I've never done something like that before. I was just curious. Yeah, for me, I mean, I feel fit. I know I also know that I'm not the fittest by any means. I'm not an athlete, but, and that's a very important point, I don't want and I don't need to be. I just want to feel good and I enjoy working out.
Yeah.
And yeah. So she was very lucky in that sense that I went there and wasn't like emotionally very, very unstable in the sense of my body, and that I maybe dropped 50 pounds and was the most exhausting thing to do, and I finally turned my life around and that sort of thing. That wasn't the case with me, but I was earlier in my life. I was at that point. I was kind of chubby when I was young, and when I was like 11, 12, I wasn't just chubby anymore. And this is not to say that that is bad in any sense and that you're not good enough of a person when that happens, because it's anything but that.
Yeah.
But I remember feeling how people would see me, not picking me in sports, or the last one, making fun of me in the dressing room and everything, or parents of anyone telling me to eat less. I remember that. She was lucky in that sense that I have overcome that and am almost totally fine with my body image, and I'm secure enough to be like, yeah, whatever, thanks for your advice, I guess. But, and that is where I was not okay with it, as you said. She didn't ask anything about me. She didn't know about or if there is a weight loss journey. She didn't know if I struggle with body image, if I'm emotionally stable. She didn't ask anything about my goals. She didn't ask anything about my nutrition. So basically, the basics she did, and it was just like, yeah, let's get this over with. What she did. But then her being the teaching person with when the results came, and she was, I don't know, it was just not okay with me that she was like, the first thing that she said was, yeah, you want to have your results? I was like, yeah, what do you think? I was like, yeah, I don't know, I guess it's pretty okay. She was like, yeah, okay, I don't want you to having to wait too long, so I'm just going to tell you the results are okay, but we need to change something. And when I think of needing to change something, this change is inevitable. You have to do it, otherwise you can't continue. That's not the case with this one. It was all pretty much average. It was weight is normal. I don't know. I'm a healthy person.
Yeah.
But she was like, yeah, no, you can't. We have to change your nutrition. You have to eat more vegetables. I just said, I'm vegan. And that's not to say that vegans only eat vegetables, which is very much not the case. You can also eat just Oreo cookies and everything and be the unhealthiest thing in the world as well. That can also be the case. But I eat a lot of vegetables.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, okay. Yeah, but still, how do you work out? And I told her how I work out and everything. Still wasn't enough for her. She was like, she basically just ignored that and then told me again what to do about my bad results. And at the end, she said, yeah, okay, but they're not that bad. She had way worse that she had to measure. And I was like, okay, you're scaling the worth of a person based on those results. And I got out of the room, and my girlfriend did the same test, and she had brilliant results. Brilliant according to the gym.
Yeah.
Because she is very fit, very, very fit. And I talked to her about that. And what if a person would have been there that maybe had just lost 20 pounds, and it's just still, body image can be horrible sometimes, and what you make of it and what people tell you what is wrong and what is right. And if you're insecure enough to believe what others say, and if you don't feel comfortable with your body, and then one of those people comes along that tell you that you're shit, basically, I don't know. She might have killed me if I would have had suicidal thoughts already, which would be obviously the worst case, but that could have happened as well.
Yeah.
And she completely wasn't aware of any of her actions or her words, and that is the worst thing. She wants to sell me something. Okay, yeah, sure. As you said, people have their businesses, but being unaware of the fact that she, first of all, has to ask a person what they're about.
Yeah.
That's the most unprofessional thing that I've ever seen. Yeah, that was my experience with the gym, and I still say hello to her.
Okay.
Because yeah.
It's one of the things where, people go to the gym because they want to better themselves, right? So, I go to the gym, I want to better myself. And, you obviously work out as well, Pi, right? So you go there to make yourself feel better, to get yourself in the shape that you want to be in. You do that to progress in the way that.
And also in the headspace.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
As well.
Massively. Like there's so much importance on that. And I always talk about that as well. Like, you put your music in and just, it does so much for your mental health as well as your physical health. And yet for somebody to come along like that and to say that in a place where you're supposed to be bettering yourself, for someone telling you that you're realistically not doing enough is so detrimental and so damaging in so many ways. And as you said, if you did have, suicidal thoughts, to really go to like that depth, the results of that could have been absolutely horrendous. So but I just the way you spoke about it in that video, and obviously the way you've kind of spoke about it now, I think it's really important to talk about in terms of self-worth, in terms of people misreading situations, in terms of imparting onto you and not really asking about you. We see it time and time again, but I just think you handled it and you spoke about it really well.
Thank you. That means a lot, because as I said, I know what it feels like to not be okay with yourself, with your body, and then defining your worth over your weight and everything.
Yeah.
That just didn't sit right with me, what she did there. And I know that there are a lot of people out there, who feel the same or who felt the same as I did when I was young. So I couldn't let that be uncommented. So
yeah. Good for you, Pi. I think anyone who regularly listens to the podcast will know that I shared a story about my weight journey. So that's why I kind of wanted to ask you about it, because I think it's so important. And I see a lot of and share a lot of kind of my own journey within that story. So that's kind of why I want to pick up, because I think it's really important and it's really integral. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. All right, Pi, finally, what does the future hold for Pi Stoffers?
I'm happy to say that, but when 2022 comes around, a lot of touring.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. But I feel like gaining confidence from those 2 UK shows we did, that we're out of the worst, and that there's light at the end of the tunnel for everyone out there, not only for musicians, but for everyone out there. Who had a part of their life taken away from them. So that, and which is for me the biggest thing, and I can't really think of anything else right now. But, there's a lot of songwriting to do still, and a lot of production, because some people might already have seen it on socials. We teased it a little bit, but we won't say anything else. But it's no secret anymore that we have started to write again.
Nice.
So yeah, and that is planned out. So our band stuff is planned out to, I think, to the year 2025.
Oh, wow.
So,
Nice.
like loosely, but still there are some key points, obviously, that need to happen. So the future looks good.
Nice.
And
I like that.
I'm looking forward to that.
It's exciting, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. All right, Pi. So share with me your socials. Where can everybody find you? You know, have you got Instagram, Twitter? Just share it all out there.
Yeah. Okay. I've never actually shared my socials, but only the band socials. So
yeah,
my band that I'm playing in is Lord of the Lost. You can just Google it. You will find Facebook, or our Instagram handle is @official Lord of the Lost. And you will find myself at Stoffers, which is PISTOFFERS on Instagram, and the same on Facebook. And I don't have Twitter. Sorry.
That's absolutely fine.
But that's where you find me. And thanks for listening. And yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lovely chat.
No, of course, Pi. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I love that we've sat down and had this conversation. So I want to say, I understand you're a busy guy. You're busy until 2025, but I appreciate you taking the time to chat to me. Honestly, thank you. So you can find the podcast, obviously, wherever you download podcasts from. We are on everywhere. So just Apple Podcasts, Spotify, put in Into You Podcast, you will find us. We're also on YouTube, where you'll see the video version of this podcast as well. If you want to follow me, I am at Straughan87. That is on Instagram. That's on Twitter. If you just type it in, you will see my face. So again, Pi, I want to say a big thank you, honestly, for taking the time out of your really busy schedule to sit and chat to me today. I've really enjoyed this, and it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you.
Yeah, same. I can honestly say same, and we'll see each other in December then.
We absolutely will. Let's talk about that.
That's great, yeah.
But until then, thank you for listening, everybody, and take care.
Bye.